Hello, 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 hello. A little bit of a new thing today. I did not plan to do this, but I said at the last minute I was going to watch some YouTube videos, some stuff that I wanted to go over before. So I said, hey, let me try to do this live here. So I appreciate anyone who's going to check it out. I recognize I don't usually do this on a Tuesday night. So, but here we is. So thank you so much to anyone who's going to join and all that kind of stuff. Again, I was going to watch some YouTube videos, and I said, let me try to do this live here. All right. So make sure you hit the like button so we can get some more peoples in here. So, all right, here we go. All right. So thank you to the people who are joining in. I see a couple of you have already joined in. I appreciate it. As usual, make sure that you say hello so that way I can acknowledge you. And if you be so inclined, hit the like button on your way in. And also make sure that you, I don't push this a lot, but if you want to buy me some lunch for the work that I do, I would appreciate it. All right. So we're going to jump into this here. We're going to talk about a guy that I've seen a couple of times here. He's a lawyer. And he's done some explosive or made some explosive statements about marriage and all that. And I played him before. So I'm going to start this off with saying, with playing a video that he did a while ago. And then we're going to go off from there. We're going to build off from there. So here's the first video that's up.
Key problem I have with marriage as it is done currently here in the West and in other places, but certainly the clay in which I work, is that there are certain promises the law can enforce, and there are certain promises it can't. We acknowledge that if we say the quiet part out loud, that in the majority of heterosexual marriages, the man brings protection and providing, and the woman brings kindness, warmth, and care, right? And sex. That's the economy. That's the economy. I didn't make that up. Don't get fucking mad at me in the comments. I didn't make it up. It was here before me. It's going to be here after me. I promise, right? So that's the game. That's the economy. His roles, his obligations are enforceable by law. So state power can be used to enforce his obligations, not hers. The court cannot order her to be nice to him, or to fuck him, or to stay pretty, or to stay sweet and friendly to him and kind to him, or speak nicely of him, or raise the children in a meaningful way that, creates value to him instead of teaching them to disrespect him, right? But his promises in that, shelter, food, financial obligations, court can force you to do that. And if you don't do it, they can put you in jail, or they can take away your driver's license, your professional licenses. So what is that? When you have a contract where only one side is enforceable by law under penalty of law, like that is a dangerous game to play if you're a man, period.
All right. So that's this guy. I don't know his name. We'll get into his name in a little bit here, but that's the dilemma that we are dealing with now. And we're trying to wrestle with what that is, what that looks like, and how that's going to be in the future. I always try to figure out which way to lean in here. We're going to try to figure all that out. And if you're wondering why you can't get men to sign up, this, that, and the other, this is part of the problem. The video that I just played, the guy said it. You're in a heterosexual relationship, and you are obligated by law to perform your duties, while the other party, the woman in the relationship, is not obligated by law to do anything. She doesn't have to be nice to your kids. She doesn't have to be nice to you. She doesn't have sex with you. She doesn't have to have sex with you. She doesn't have to do anything. And this is the argument in the debate. So if you remember, we had not long ago I played Pierce Morgan, his show, and the guy Andrew Wilson. And that was Andrew Wilson's contention. What is it that ladies have to provide in the relationship? What is it? She really couldn't do it, and eventually resorted to name calling. So we're going to look at Andrew Wilson and this guy again, this particular attorney again. So they had a little conversation, and I'm going to play that conversation. I'm not going to play the whole thing because that's not the main attraction for the evening, but I do want to play that for a little bit. And let me say hello to some of you who showed up. Jamisha, hey, what's up? I haven't seen you in a little bit. Miles is in the building. Hello to you. Hello to Cheryl Smith, who was first up. I should acknowledge that. Thank you so much. Yeah, it's too dangerous. Yep, it's too dangerous. And anyone else who is watching, please make sure you say hello so I can acknowledge you. And thank you so much for checking out the video. And please make sure that you hit the thumbs up button. All right, so we're going to play a little bit of this debate, because these two end up going at it. So this guy Andrew Wilson is antagonistic not only to ladies, but he's antagonistic to to attorneys as well. Let me see. Do I put this on the screen? No, I didn't. Present. Share screen. All right, so you can see the name of this. This comes from The Crucible. Lawyer explodes debating Andrew Wilson on divorce rate. So we're just going to play just a little bit of this. I apologize if I sound a little bit lower. I tried to fix the sound quality of my microphone. It's up at 100%, so I can't do anything about that. So if the videos I'm playing are louder than my voice, I can't do. I don't know how to do anything about that. Maybe I don't know. All right, here we go.
Responding to somebody who said that the failure rate of marriage was 75%, and I don't think that that's accurate. So
yeah, so
for us.
So I think numbers are important, and I think I enjoyed yesterday's conversation on Rule Zero a lot, and I especially enjoyed talking to Andrew to the point where I actually tweeted after the show yesterday saying how much I enjoy a debate with someone who knows what the hell they're talking about. And it's obvious that he does know what he's talking about and that he's done some research. So I figured in anticipation of today, though, like all good lawyers, that I would do a little research and I would get the most current numbers I could possibly give. So I think it might be nice to start off with some statistics, and then we can kind of put them wherever we want to put them. But all of these are easy to find online. CDC, whatever your opinions are, the CDC, in terms of the compilation of statistics from the Bureau of Vital Statistics. This is from August of 2023. And I want to just throw some concepts and some numbers out at you, because look, we're always being told, it's a Ben Shapiro favorite thing to say, facts don't care about your feelings. Well, the feelings don't care, feelings don't care about facts either, so the truth is, I understand there's a lot of feelings.
Now, I don't know if I'm going to play this part, but you can see right here, Andrew Wilson is kind of perplexed at that statement. But I think that the attorney's name is James A.J. Sexton. When he says there's a guy, Ben Shapiro, who's kind of famous, he goes on different platforms. He's on, what, I forget the name of his platform. Some right-wing conservative platform. It's the name of his is escaping me right now. Ben Shapiro. So he's very much an advocate for Israel, and a very hard right conservative. And so he always says facts don't care about your feelings. So when James Sexton is saying that, what he's saying when he's saying feelings don't care about facts, what I think that he's talking about is people who are guided by their emotions don't care about the facts. That's what I think he's trying to say. But so Andrew has got a perplexed look on his face, trying to understand, what he's talking about there, why he made that statement. Hello to you, Judy Newman, and hello to Walanda Jones from Vegas and Georgia, respectively. Thank you so much for checking out the show. I appreciate it. I see Deborah Hutchison. Thank you so much. I appreciate it. All right, so we're going to keep on going. So right now, you guys joined a little bit late. So Andrew Wilson, who I've played before, is having a conversation, and apparently this has been an ongoing conversation between him and this lawyer James Sexton, and they're debating facts and figures. And what I want you to hear, and why I'm playing this, is I want you to understand the data that's out there about marriage. So whether you're for it, against it, want to do it again, don't want to ever do it again, here's some of the data. That's why I'm playing this. Not so much for the rivalry that these two have going on, but really to talk about the data that this lawyer is about to get into right here. That's why I'm playing this. Although the explosive disagreement later on, which I probably will not play, you can go over there and find this, is pretty funny.
Involved in marriage things, everybody's caught up on the idea of I think people like these straw men. When you were talking, Rollo, about how this pops up around every election cycle. Of course, these kinds of straw man arguments come up around every election cycle. Why do politicians on the state level love talking about how they're hard on drunk drivers? Because is there a big pro DWI group out there somewhere, like Mothers for Drunk Driving? Everyone's, why do we have such oppressive and unbelievably vicious anti-domestic violence legislation out there on the books that's catching tons and tons of men in the net? Again, I can tell you, intimate partner abuse, domestic violence, those are real things. But that's not why we have so many laws in the books that are anti-domestic violence. It's because there's no pro-domestic violence lobby out there. So it's very safe for any politician, whichever side of the aisle they're on, getting up and saying, I am
against domestic violence. Well, Lottie fucking dies. There are a lot of people out there going, I'm pro domestic violence. It's a ridiculous argument. So it's the same thing now. What is this year's flavor? This year's flavor is I am for happy marriages. Well, who the fuck is against happy marriages? Is there a group of people out there saying I'm against happy marriages? Because if you want to try to put that on the red pill, like that shoe just isn't going to fit. It's not like anyone in this community is saying, oh yeah, we think marriages suck and marriage as a technology is awful. And even if you're happily married, you should get unhappy and get divorced. That's a ridiculous argument. It's a straw man. So I think we should really be looking at facts. So let me throw a couple of statistics out here, a couple of facts, and then we can all figure out what to do with those. Because, you know, I love people who say they love America but hate Americans. And I love people who say that, you know, they care about, you know, marriage satisfaction or the divorce rate, but all they want to do is just create barriers to getting out of unhappy marriages. They don't want to talk about the underlying causes for divorce. So let's talk about statistically what those causes are. And then anybody, particularly TradCom people that are saying, hey, we're really trying to support marriages, we want to end divorce. Cool. Instead of creating bigger barriers to divorce and making my job more lucrative as a divorce lawyer, maybe you can do some of these things that'll shore up helping people's marriages. So let's look at some statistics. So in terms of divorce rates, divorce rates, when people say 73% or in the 70s, yes, third marriages, if you're married 3 times, third time is not a charm, 73% divorce rate for third marriages, 67% divorce rate for second marriages, 52% divorce rate for first marriages. Now, this is the statistics as of 2021 because it takes the year for them to compile the statistics. So in 2023, you get the numbers that reflected the year of 2021, not 2022. So when you average it out, that's where you get this number of 56% marriages end in divorce, is that they're averaging out, but they're not giving the same weight to all 3 of those things. But it's 52% for first marriages, 67% for second marriages, 73% for third marriages. 40% of new marriages include a partner who is remarrying. So the majority of marriages, 60%, are first marriages for both partners, but as many as 20% of unions are one person who's been married before. So again, remember, some of these statistics are a little tricky when you look at the divorce rate because you're talking about people who've been married multiple times, okay? Only 6% of divorced couples remarry each other. So I guess once you've seen the movie, you don't want to see it again. But interestingly enough, 72% of reuniting couples who remarry each other after divorcing each other stay married, which is really weird.
Okay, I want to play all this again. So you guys, I'm going to put the stats up there again. So just bear with me because I want again, I'm playing this for the stats, not so much for the entertainment value of these guys, but this guy's reading through the stats here. So that's why I want to play this. And I'm going to put the subtitles up here so you can read it.
To getting out of unhappy marriages, they don't want to talk about the underlying causes for divorce. So let's talk about statistically what those causes are. And then anybody, particularly TradCom people that are saying, hey, we're really trying to support marriages, we want to end divorce. Cool. Instead of creating bigger barriers to divorce and making my job more lucrative as a divorce lawyer, maybe you can do some of these things that'll shore up helping people's marriages. So let's look at some statistics. So in terms of divorce rates, divorce rates, when people say 73% or in the 70s, yes, third marriages, if you're married 3 times, third time is not a charm, 73% divorce rate for third marriages, 67% divorce rate for second marriages, 52% divorce rate for first marriages. Now, this is the statistics as of 2021 because it takes the year for them to compile the statistics. So in 2023, you get the numbers that reflected the year of 2021, not 2022. So when you average it out, that's where you get this number of 56% marriages end in divorce, is that they're averaging out, but they're not giving the same weight to all 3 of those things. But it's 52% for first marriages, 67% for second marriages, 73% for third marriages. 40% of new marriages include a partner who is remarrying. So the majority of marriages, 60%, are first marriages for both partners, but as many as 20% of unions are one person who's been married before. So again, remember, some of these statistics are a little tricky when you look at the divorce rate because you're talking about people who've been married multiple times, okay? Only 6% of divorced couples remarry each other. So I guess once you've seen the movie, you don't want to see it again. But interestingly enough, 72% of reuniting couples who remarry each other after divorcing each other stay married, which is really weird. Okay, this is a really interesting statistic. I'm going to be really interested to hear
Probably because they end up recognizing what they did wrong, looked at the outside and said, you weren't so bad after all. Let me get back with you and stay together. So 72% is pretty good, certainly above these other averages here. So
everybody's perspective on this. Having friends who are divorced dramatically increases your risk of divorce. Okay. Yeah. So couples who have friends who divorce have a 75% increase in their own marriage risk Okay. And even
Your
couples
whole
with 2
friends.
degrees of separation. Well, that's because of this, there's a lot of sociologists that say that divorce is a social contagion of sorts. So I thought that was very, very interesting.
I definitely believe that. I definitely believe that marriage is a social contagion. You see one person getting divorced, and next thing you know, it's a domino effect.
And just a couple other stats I want to throw out there. Couples who live together before marriage are more likely to divorce. Okay, so that's something that Christian conservatives and other religious individuals who say, many trad cons who are of a religious perspective, even if someone's not religious, they might say, hey, look, you know, the biblical covenants that say people shouldn't be married or living together before they're married or having premarital sex, there's actually some statistical evidence to support the fact that parties who are a total of 57% of couples who did not cohabitate prior to marriage had a union that lasted 20 or more years, compared to 46% who lived together before tying the knot. So that's a 10% difference. That's significant. This is something I saw yesterday after the conversation with Andrew that I thought was really, really interesting, because it's something where Andrew and I were in agreement. And that is over 70% of couples report not understanding the realities or stages of marriage. Okay, so this is people who are divorcing. 72% of them reported, and it's self-reporting, obviously, okay, that one or both of them didn't fully understand the commitment involved in marriage before they got married. And that goes to
Listen, I think that is absolutely stunning and shocking, and that is what I think, we really need to focus on, is understanding what we're doing. It's, particularly now going forward, we got to understand, that's what I'm saying. You got to have classes, you got to have certificates. They're going to talk, I think they're going to get into the difficulty. Which way am I leaning there? They got to get into the difficulty of getting out of marriage. And so the idea is to make it more difficult to get into the marriage, to balance out the back end, because you don't recognize what you're doing. As kids, you think, again, a lot of times guys, particularly in religious environments, are like, they just want to have sex and this, that, and the other. So you make these decisions and you don't know what you're doing. And so this is a problem. And this is a problem. And then people on the way out are like, I didn't know what I was getting myself into. I really got to take care of this person when they're sick. You mean they don't look as beautiful all the time? You mean sometimes he has a bonnet on, sometimes she's going to have a runny nose, sometimes he's going to be in the bathroom, farting up a storm. I mean, I wasn't ready to sign up for all that. I'm not ready to sign up for all that. So this is the issue. This is the issue that a lot of people are having. So people a lot of times are not prepared for that. Cheryl Smith says she agrees that fixing. I agree that the emphasis should be on fixing the reasons for failed marriages. Yeah, absolutely. Get rid of this banner here. Let's see what else. Miles put up the numbers there. There they are again: 52% for first, second, 67, 73 for third. Listen, it's a contagion, right? You got divorced once. I survived it once. Went the emotional rigors. You cried the first time. All this kind of stuff. Felt devastated, embarrassed. All that don't even matter anymore. Just keep doing it. Lauren Akers, hello to you. Thank you so much. You appreciate the work. I appreciate you. Thank you so much. Rhonda Payne is saying, hit the like button, y'all. Hit it. Hit it. Different rainbow colors there. Hit the like button, y'all, please. I would appreciate it. Thank you so much, John Kennedy. Great topic. Yeah, we got to talk about this. Make sure you hit the like button so the algorithms can boost it up so other people can enjoy it as well. All right, we're going to continue on with a little bit more of this. This is not the main video for the night, but we'll get to
point yesterday that I very much agreed with, about how there maybe should be better barriers to entry into the covenant of marriage. Maybe this is something that you shouldn't be able to do for $20 with Elvis marrying you. In Nevada, by the way, highest divorce rate in the United States. Now
and they brag about that. If you've ever taken one of the tours in Vegas, they talk about that. Yeah, here's the chapels and this, that, and the other, and we got the highest divorce rates. Is it divorce or is it Reno that's the highest divorce? I took the tour. I can't remember. Vegas might be the highest marriages, and Reno might be the highest divorces. Anyway, it's out there. So yeah, you're right, Rhonda. Those percentages are pretty high.
Something that I don't think you're going to hear out of all of these politicians while they continue to have their hands in your pockets. Divorce rates are much higher among couples below the poverty line. Living below the poverty level, we all know, causes tremendous stress on people. Okay. 46% of adults ages 18 to 55 who live below the poverty level have divorced. Okay, so that's a fairly significant number compared to 12%. Okay, so that's a pretty huge number. And then also income. The divorce rate decreases as income increases to a point. Okay, so couples, as their income increases, the divorce rate tends to decrease. Once you have an income of around $200,000 as a combined household income, you stay at about 30%. Once it hits 600,000 of income, it drops to 25%. Okay, but once it exceeds that, it goes back up to 30%. So the idea is you should be rich, but not really rich. Okay, like you should have a good amount of money, but not, and definitely don't be poor, because being poor would be bad. Again, so these are some questions about what are these things we can solve for if we're really that concerned about saving marriage. The median age of first marriages is increasing. In 2022, the median age of marriage was 32 for men, 30 for women. Jeez. So let's just tie that in with the biological. Yeah, let's tie. I know that Rola's going to have a blast tying that in with the biological reality of when people have babies. But to put that in perspective, in 2012, okay, 2012. So we're going, because these are 2022 statistics. Let's go back 10 years. The average age for a woman was 26, and for a man, it was 28. So look at that jump in 10 years. Look at how much that's changed. Okay. And then the average age of people who divorce, 46 for men, 44 for women. Couples who marry, this is a great one, before age 32 have the lowest divorce rates. But it has to be from 20 to 32. If you marry under the age of or at the age of 20, that's a higher divorce rate. Once you pass 32, the divorce rates increase by 5% per year until the age that they marry. So those are just some statistics. I mean, listen, there's a bunch more that I got for you guys in terms of educational levels. Obviously, the divorce rate for people with an education of high school or less is 39% for men, 37% for women. Whereas if you have a college education, 26% for men. So 26 versus 39, and 37 for women versus 30. So the trope that some people have in their minds that, an educated woman is going to be more likely to divorce, that's actually not true. The lower the education level for women and for men, the higher the likelihood of divorce. So that's a very interesting statistic. And then I wanted to end on, because I know we have some religious people on the panel today, and I have a tremendous respect for religion. But the religion with the lowest divorce population is Hindu. So if we're very much pro-marriage, we need to get people out there. We need to evangelize for the Hindus, because unfortunately the highest divorce population is evangelical Protestants. So the evangelical Protestants they're way far behind the Hindus. Only 5% of Hindus report divorce. Okay. So we've got, as compared to 14% of evangelical Protestants getting divorced. But they are still doing better, by the way, than those who are unaffiliated or not religious. That's 11%. 11% so being religious does increase your chances of remaining married, particularly if you're Hindu.
Now, let me throw in a couple of caveats here, first of all, because I also want to be able to separate this by.
Okay, I just wanted to play that. You can go over. I just want the stats. They're going to get into a heated argument. So if you want to see the argument, you can go over to the Crucible. This was actually a year ago, and the lawyer explodes debating Andrew on divorce rates. So you can go over there, check that out, and give them a like and all that kind of stuff. So I just wanted to play that particular segment for the stats that he was putting up there. So let's see here. What is this? Are Hindus arranged marriages? I don't know. That's a good question. I don't know. I don't know. Let's see. Miles says seems there are more cons than pros for marriage. And I don't know if I said hello to you, Gail. If I didn't, forgive me. Hello to you, Gail. I see Veronica's in the building. Veronica Brown, hello to you. Yeah, so listen, I'm telling you, I'm just trying to give people the facts, and you do with them what you will. But now we know, a certain age range is best to get married. If you're a woman in more education, you seem to stay married. If you're a guy, I think you said under 32, get married then before you get married, and it'll last longer. So you can look at all that. And when I Googled this stuff, right, I'm always taking the website. So he went over, I think he went straight to the CDC website and wherever else he went to. I'm pretty sure he went to the CDC. So why the Center for Disease Control would keep marriage statistics? I don't know, but I'm sure there's a reason. I just don't know what it is. Anyway, so that's that. Let's see. My opinion from Veronica. Hello to you. My opinion: marriage is worth it. I don't want to fornicate. I prefer to be married. I want to be legal in my marriage. I don't want to be sleeping with any man that is not. I am not in covenant with. Gail says again. I don't know. Are Hindu marriages arranged? I'll stay abstinent for life. Cool dad. Thank you so much. Marriage is definitely not worth the trouble. Well, we're going to get into it. So we're going to get into that debate here. So ignorance is bliss, according to these stats. If you don't know, it could be better. I suppose you feel better. Sometimes you got too much knowledge or overthink. Could be. I don't know. All right. So I want to get into the main one. So this is the main debate that I wanted to bring up here. Let's see. Share screen. So this is the same lawyer again, making his rounds, and he's debating with the pastor. I'm going to fast forward a little bit so we can get their backgrounds. So the guy is going to be coming from the religious angle, and when I like it when they cut up like this and they can jump around. So here we go.
So fascinating. So, James, why don't you start? How long have you been doing this in terms of attorney?
Sure.
How many divorces have you been involved in?
Sure.
And then how did the whole public profile thing start to rise?
Yeah. Well, I've been a divorce lawyer for 25 years. And I think one of the things that makes me different than some of my colleagues, aside from the tattoos and the public persona, is I went to law school to be a divorce lawyer. I intentionally became a divorce lawyer. Most divorce lawyers, when you talk to them, they always use the same phrase, which is, well, I ended up in divorce law. And it's always a story of how they meant to do something else and then they ended up. Because very rarely do you use the phrase like, oh, I ended up, to mean something you intended to do. It's always like, yeah, I meant to get to the Barclays Center, but I ended up in the middle of Newark. Yeah. So it's one of those things that I was a psychology major as an undergraduate. I went and did my master's degree in propaganda studies specifically, but in mass persuasion. So in the preacher context, it's all about sort of group.
I didn't know there was such a thing, mass persuasion. Okay. I didn't know that, mass persuasion. I didn't know that. I've never seen that on a college's website. Where did he do that at? So I wonder what college that was that had that. Though I've been married for almost 29 years. This is my second marriage. My first marriage didn't even last 2 years. Interesting. I am a strong advocate for premarital counseling because a good counselor will represent real life scenarios that a couple needs to work through and develop strategies on how to accomplish them. I definitely agree with that. I definitely agree that there should be premarital counseling, a certificate. It should last a minimum 6 months, maybe even a year. That way you can continue to court, date, know each other, see each other angry, upset. It's another 6 months. You can't get married until you do this. I just think there's got to be, and part of that marital counseling has got to be talking about how you're going to raise kids, thoughts about, religion, everything that's going to come up in marriage, right? You got to be able to talk about that. So I definitely think that. And you shouldn't be able to walk into any Elvis chapel or Vegas or get on a boat and be so enamored with someone on a cruise and the captain of the boat is married. No, you shouldn't be able to do any of that. It's too important now. The biggest problem is that most people do not seek out this type of counseling and they just jump into it without a guide or a plan. Again, I'm not sure if you're here for this period, but the lawyer who's speaking now in the previous video that I showed was talking about 70% of people when they get into marriage had no clue as to the covenant and to the responsibilities that they were getting themselves into. So that's an issue. 70% of people who are on their way out of divorce didn't know what they were doing and signed up for in the beginning. That tells you that there's a problem. So everyone, please hit the like button. For example, I am being a little bit vulnerable here because my wife is going through a menopause and her libido is very low. I don't know if I want to read this. to an unprepared couple, this will present several problems relationship up to and including infidelity issues. You ain't lying about that, brother. However, this is something my wife and I have discussed and prepared for. Therefore, we are working together through it together. Yeah, communication is the ultimate goal. Thank you for sharing that. Perry. Appreciate it. I think I meant to reach out to you, man. I don't know if you got a channel or not, but hit me up in the email and maybe I'll have you on sometime and we'll talk about it. All right, so here we go. We're going to keep on with this guy. I want to speed it up because I want to get to
persuasion and the differences between persuading an individual and persuading whether it's 10,000 people. And I was working on my PhD, and I just decided, you know what, I needed to make money. I had 2 very little kids at the time, and I realized how little money professors make. So I said, I think I need to do something else. I had a part-time job teaching GRE and SAT classes with Kaplan. And they said, you'll make an extra $10 an hour if you teach the LSAT, the law school admission test. And I said, well, how do I get to do that? And they said, well, you have to score in the 90th percentile or higher. So I was like, okay. So I just sat down and took every LSAT that had ever been released over and over again for time until I could do it perfectly and get nothing wrong. And then I took the actual LSAT and ended up getting to go to law school for free. So I went to law school for free at Fordham Law School. And I said, the thought of being any kind of lawyer other than a divorce lawyer didn't make sense to me. It was like a highly paid proofreader. Criminal law didn't seem appealing because the people that commit really interesting crimes usually don't have enough money to pay a lot of money for a lawyer. And the people that do have a lot of money and commit a crime that requires the intervention of a judge usually don't do it more than once. Like if they don't go to jail, they just do it once. You don't get a lot of repeat business.
What appealed to you about divorce?
A lot of things. I mean, one of the things what most appealed to me about it was even then, and this is before Instagram and before, the very performative nature of our society, when you really were just comparing yourself to people that you saw at church or saw at the grocery store, saw at school, that there was just, I felt that was fake. There was so much that was fake. I grew up very Catholic. I grew up going to church every week, and everyone would sort of be in their Sunday best, dressed nicely. And meanwhile, you're like, he's definitely cheating on his wife because I saw them out, and this one beats his kid because I go to school with his kid. And I know, so there was this performative public face, but everyone's standing in the pews together, all, being very holy, which to me at the time, of course, as a young man was like, oh yeah, this is hypocrisy. This whole thing's a sham. This is a con. And what I liked about divorce law was no one could claim they meant to get divorced. And yet over 50% of marriages end in divorce. So everyone who gets married, when they get married, they're like, forever, you and me, that's it. We found our person. It's going to be you and only you. And I think most of them sincerely mean it and want that to be where they go. But it's kind of a wish. It's a, like if we want this enough, like act as if you had faith and faith will be given to you. Like we have faith in this relationship, so it's going to be that way. And they're not ready when this just get hit in the face with reality and stress. And again, the beauty of having children, but the exhaustion of having children, the stress of having children. And can we maintain our bond through that? It's easy to maintain a bond in some ways when things are good. It presents unique challenges when things are good. I'm sure Carl can speak to that. But the reality is it's also really hard when things go south to maintain a bond. So for me, the appeal of being a divorce lawyer was people are in a tremendous moment of need and terror. And the most important things, their children, their resources, their core resources, their home, all those things are on the table. And you get to be their voice. And to me, that just felt like such a beautiful opportunity to be part of the architecture of someone's post-divorce life. To see someone fall and to say, okay, come on, let's do this. Let's get up together and let's figure this out. Like, let's put it back together one brick at a time. Let's get you the resources you're going to need for this next chapter. Let's learn from what happened here. I've always said the statistic that most people are interested in is that over 50% of marriages end in divorce. But the statistic nobody pays much attention to is that 86% of people who divorce are remarried within 5 years. So think about that. Like, but how many times do people lose so much and then go, let's do it again. Let's try again. It speaks to something about what we need from that, So to me, being part of that and using my skills as an advocate and a speaker to the benefit of people who are in this storm, I found it very appealing. And I've been very blessed. 25 years I've been doing what I do. I've facilitated the demise of thousands of marriages at this point.
Thousands?
Yeah, definitely in the thousands now. Yeah, because I at any given time, I usually have 20 to 30 cases going, and I've been doing it for 25 years. And usually the life cycle of a case is like 3 to 6 months. So
yeah, I mean, that's the other fascinating thing is like, you as a pastor sitting down with like a lot of couples and you're like maybe they're having an issue, you're trying to help them or they're in crisis mode. And then you're just like kind of like the whole thing blew up like down the stream. And so you guys have both sat with people for quite some time in your careers. How has the whole fame thing influenced your over the past few years?
Okay, I want to get into Carl's background here. The pastors.
It's not a judgment with you. It's more of almost a pastoral embrace of somebody in a really bad situation. And as you're talking, I'm thinking there is a link pastorally because in essence, when you pastor people, they're coming out of a divorce of a life. So there's a similarity in that, like when you become a follower of Jesus, you have to divorce a lot, and you come into a setting in the church community where some things are in shambles. It can be a happy one, but at the same time, your life is radically different, and all you want from a pastor is to be accepted and loved and helped. And I think that's kind of in getting to talk to you a little bit. I think that might be some of the amazing draw to who you are, because there's not a lot of judgment, and I think people just can feel that. It must feel really shamey to go sit down with a divorce attorney. And so if you don't feel that, it probably feels really good because you already are shaming yourself. So my story is literally defined like that. There's a lot of stuff that was going right and was awesome, and I had some stuff that just was deadly that I didn't handle in a way that would have spared a lot of people pain, including my family, myself, and so on this side of life, I a lot of my stuff ended up in a moment where I had to make some decisions on how I was going to live. What was I going to do from there? Will that be the chapter? Will that be a page? And since then, God's been gracious to me, to my family, and we're in a new chapter. But we've learned a lot, and we are learning a lot. So now I spend a lot of my time. I'm not a divorce attorney, but my gosh, do I find myself sitting across from people who have some stuff that they're carrying, and try to use what I've learned and am learning to help. And I still love it. I'm not, I don't pastor at a church, but I don't think you stop pastoring people. I don't think that's something that we only should give to people that have the title. So I still love it. I still love people, and maybe even more now.
Yeah.
A little bit freer. Yeah.
That's good. So
I want to get to
what's the point of doing it?
I want to get to what's the point of marriage. I'm a widow. I prefer to be married again with a man with adult children. Ain't trying to do it again, huh? I hear that. All my children are adults. I don't have that responsibility anymore. The legal system is enough for a deterrent for me. I think it is for a lot of men. And that's why we want to talk about it. We want to try to get these guys, hopefully see if this pastor can say anything that will convince us to want to jump into it again. And remember, Hindus have the greatest success rates when it comes to marriage. So keep that in mind as we listen to this pastor.
Spiritually, like, why not just live with your girlfriend forever and just hang out? Or legally, why would you merge?
Yeah, if you take religious faith out of it. So if you take out any sense that there's something divinely inspired or divinely pleasing in what's happening here, that we're not called to marriage by some omnipotent creator deity. And this is purely just a function of something we built societally. Like if you look at it like Sigmund Freud's civilization, it's discontents. Like, all right, we're just going to all be killing each other and sleeping with each other if we don't make some rules, guys. We got to make some rules, And like that's kind of, the lens I'm looking at it from. I think there's a lot of reasons to get married. Even if, by the way, the marriage is going to end in divorce. Like I'm a divorced man. I've been divorced for over 20 years. I don't consider my marriage a failure. It produced 2 wonderful children who are now adults and are well-adjusted, happy, successful adults, one of whom's getting married in a few months. My ex-wife is a lovely human being who I still consider a dear friend. And there's a lot of people I love that I wouldn't want to be married to. She's one of them. She'd probably say the same thing about me. I love Jim. He's a great guy. He's a great ex-husband. He's a great father, but I wouldn't want to be married to him. And
you also have a partner too, right?
I do. Yeah, I do.
For a while?
For a long time. Yeah,
Okay,
a significant number of years, over 10 years. But I'm very disinterested because of the lens I come to it from. Like marriage to me does not add anything from a legal status. In terms of commitment, monogamy, those are different things. I think commitment is important. Monogamy, I think, is a good model. I don't think I could handle a non-monogamous relationship, although I do know some people that practice ethical non-monogamy, as they call it, and have had mixed degrees of success with it. I meet a lot of the off the rails horror stories of non-monogamy relationships, which are very often like a Hail Mary pass. Like, all right, before we end up in the divorce lawyer's office, maybe if we give each other permission to sleep with other people, that'll fix it.
Also, what a great label. Ethical non-monogamy.
Yeah.
It's almost as cool as decoupling.
Yeah.
It's you mean you're just running away, you hate each other, you want to fight.
Yeah.
Okay, got it.
Yeah. And listen, I get the desire to put a nice coat of paint on something. Yeah. But my feeling is like, call it what it is. We want to sleep with other people, and I don't think anybody who's married doesn't occasionally want to sleep with other people. The question is is there space for that in your marriage? And I just don't really believe that for me, it would be a relationship permutation that would make sense. But, Russell Brand, who I know you've done some work with, is somebody who, once said, he was talking about the time where he was a heroin addict. And he said, not once when I was in the throes of heroin addiction did I go, wait a minute, this is illegal. I shouldn't do this. It's illegal. He's like, the legality never entered into it. If you think anyone has ever been tempted sexually and went, wait a minute, I made a contract with the state of New York that I wasn't going to do this. I'm not going to do it. It's not going to enter into somebody's mind. I mean, I've spent so much time in rooms with people who are cheating on their spouse or have been caught cheating on their spouse or have repeatedly cheated on, or their spouse has cheated on them. And 9 times out of 10, they'll say, it had nothing to do with my spouse. I never stopped loving my spouse. They were the last thing I was thinking of, which, by the way, that's the problem.
Yeah.
They should have been what you were thinking of. Like, it should have been the thought of them as the thing that made you go, yeah, that'd be real fun, but I'm not going to do that because I've made a commitment. So I think marriage, from my point of view, it's a very individual thing. Why are you married? That's a very individual thing. And the interesting thing is, I think many couples who marry have never had the conversation. Why are we getting married? What is it you want from this relationship? What do you feel I owe you in this relationship? Like, one of the things I really like so much about Lights On and your conversations with Laura is this. You're both very honest about, like, yeah, this is like the part that's on me, and this is the part that, like, yeah, I'm going to give you a little flack for this. Like you do.
Yeah, so I just got to break it up there. So I definitely think that's the issue. A lot of people are just not having a conversation. Why are we doing this? Is it because we're supposed to? Is it because the culture is saying so? Because our grandparents are telling us to do it? My nana is telling me it's time, and what are we doing, and why are we doing it? You got to have that conversation. East Point, thank you so much. Salute to you. Yeah, it's definitely good. I want to jump around a little bit here. We'll finish this out, and then we'll get to something else here. I'm sorry, we're fast forward.
Do this, and it's a little challenging for me to navigate. And how many married couples have that conversation? How many married couples have that conversation publicly? And I'm sure when Carl was a pastor, people would, behind closed doors, be like, yeah, I'm cheating, I'm this, and that. By the way, they might have felt less comfortable. Like, I have to tell you, as someone who is not consulting with a pastor, I would much rather talk to one who has been through the whole run. than someone who just is sitting there with their perfect kids and their beautiful wife,
Yeah,
and you look at him and just go, what is this guy? I suck.
Yeah.
Like I, I've said it before, like, I don't know that I believe in the devil. But if there was a devil, his principal function would be to convince us all that we are so bestial that God couldn't possibly love us. Because I know the moments where I have felt the furthest from the good in me is when I was like, you know what, I'm a piece of garbage anyway. Why not just go all the way with it? Right? And instead of really recognizing that, no, I have good in me, I have beauty in me, I have love in me. So marriage is to some degree for me about like, no, I see this beauty in you. And yeah, there's all this mess, but under it, I know who you are. Like, I love you and I know who you are. And to me, if you can find that, yeah, of course, like, hold on to it. It's amazing. It's beautiful. If I thought marriage made it easier to hold on to that, I'd be the biggest fan of marriage ever. But I just don't see a correlation between that kind of love and marriage. I just don't see it.
What do you think?
I think it's very, very well said. I think to me, marriage, I don't know how to separate it from my faith, because I don't think if I was not a Christian, I would be married, because everything that in my marriage belief stems from what I believe God said. In our Christian worldview, I see it from top to bottom going, okay, marriage is something that God has designed to do a couple things that are super important. But for me, my takeaway is it is a commitment to not live for myself. And that's one of my favorite things about being married, is it's like an automatic check from you. I'm making a commitment to not serve myself primarily for the rest of my life. And just that alone requires me to live a certain way that should put me in a position to be able to make this relationship pretty special. Problem is, we're human. The problem is, without God's help, this is a disaster. And the stats point to that. So I see people who they don't share my faith, and they've had, great marriages for long periods of time. I'm like, tell me what you got going on, because the only reason I can even function is in my life, I think it's because of Jesus. And that's the only reason why Laura and I are in this, is because we really believe that God has set this relationship apart to be special, to build the family unit, to get to know each other in a special way, that in that moment, I think in a marriage, when it's working correctly, you can grow in a way that's special.
Yeah.
But to me, the legal side of it is a whole different conversation of like, it's a different topic. Because to me, marriage is this thing that God created so we can know him better. And that's what we found in marriage, is it's really pointed us to a different outlook on who God is to us. And it's hard. It's very difficult. But I don't know. Me and Laura joke all the time. Like, if it wasn't for God, we would work out a different arrangement, because it doesn't make any sense. It's actually, to
so
me,
funny when you say that, because I hear you say that and it makes me sad, because I look at, as a person who's not a person of faith, I look at you and Laura and the way you talk to each other and talk about each other and the things you've been through and the way you conduct yourselves as parents and as people. And I go, whether there's a God or isn't a God, like, this is beautiful. Like, this is a beautiful thing. So when you say, like, oh, I don't know that we would even do this if it wasn't for, I go, really? Like, man, you'd be poor for it, because you got this you found another person who goes, whatever you do, no matter how bad or publicly, you step on the rake. And like, we're going to do this. Like, I'm your person, you're my person, we're together, and we're going to do this thing. And like, to me, I mean, look, it's wonderful to think that God gave you that, or that God inspires that in you. But like, take away, you find out tomorrow there's no God. I don't think you'd be like, all right, man, I'm out. Like, I don't really have anything left to do with this woman. The covenant's been broken. It doesn't, turns out there's no God. Like, forget it.
Well, I think the love is real, but I honestly, maybe I hear you use the word sad, and I think I would like to submit, maybe it's just different, because to me, it's a highlight of what God can do with guys that are really broken. Because that to me is the truth of our marriage. Like, if Laura was here, she'd be laughing, because she'd be like, Jim, I'm telling you, if we find out there's no God tomorrow, and we've been believing a hoax as Christians for generations, I'm gonna try something different, because the way that we're able to love each other and forgive each other, for her especially. Like, I mean, we always say, like, most marriage breakdowns, I'm interested in your take on this, there's shared blame. Not in our situation. My wife's not perfect. She's just awesome. And our marriage breakdowns I carry those. And because of what, I believe God's grace can do for us, people like me can stay married. And so I don't see it as sad. I know what you mean.
Well, I get it from the place of that you have something so
we do,
lovely.
but I believe God has created that in us, Jim, because I don't have it in me. I've seen, and even as a Christian man, I created a lot of damage. So I just, maybe I'm the lowest rung when it comes to broken humanity. Maybe there are people who are just better people, perhaps. I'm willing to even say that. But I know for me, as I sit here today at 46 years old, married for over 2 decades, have had infidelity, have made bad choices, we're still married today because it's not just us in it. And I don't know the people, I'm not saying that everyone has to do that, but the reason why we're still together is because there's something, stronger than our capacity to lean on.
It binds it.
I think that's kind of sad that he would say that if they found out that there was nothing more to this, that they would leave each other. I think that's kind of a sad place, but that's my own philosophy.
Yeah.
And I get and understand that it certainly is. It is meant as a compliment to the bond that you and Laura very clearly share, and the manner in which you've supported each other. I mean, I've disagreed from time to time with some of the messages that I hear come out of your mouth and Laura's mouth. And Laura's not obviously a defender position, but there was a discussion that you guys had about cheating. Is cheating a function of, or is it inspired in any way by a lack of sex in the relationship? And she was talking about how, like, that wasn't, that's not the reason people cheat, is that, like, a man's not getting enough sex in his relationship, so that's why he steps out of the marriage. Right. And again, whether you're talking about it as a general principle or in the context of your own individual marriage, it wasn't necessarily clear from the conversation, but it was an intriguing conversation. I think it was on one of the episodes.
Yeah.
But I remember watching that thinking like, right, but and even just now when you say like, well, and anything that was wrong in the marriage or anything that was our devil, that was all on me.
She definitely has a part to play, but I mean like the impetus of it.
Well, it's everyone's fault or it's no one's fault.
That's true.
So like it's your kid, like it's your kid's fault to some degree. Like, because kids are the most wonderful blessing in the world, but they make you sleep deprived. They change your sex life. They change your wife's body.
They drain your money.
Right. They drain all of your money. Yeah. This we can relate to. But again, is admitting that saying, so don't have kids? No. What you're saying is, look, this is an ecosystem.
Yeah.
You take the lizards out of an ecosystem. You don't have the same forest just without the lizards. Now this doesn't have this to eat and the lizards don't eat this plant. And now you got a whole other ecosystem. So like a marriage is an ecosystem. A family is an ecosystem. You take God out of your equation. I understand what you're saying. It's foundational.
Yeah.
This is foundational for you. But still, you take that foundational piece away. I don't think your first move would be like, we don't have to do this anymore. And you step out of it because I see a tremendous amount of value added to your life by your relationship with Laura. Just as I've often said about religion, if someone says to me, I'm going to be a good, loving, open person who's going to be kind to my fellow man, forgiving on an almost endless level because I believe that Jesus existed and wanted that for me, great. Like whether that's true or not, if it inspires something so beautiful in you, I'm all for it. If you say to me, Star Wars and the stories of the Jedi is what inspires me, great. But if you start telling me Wookiees are real, now we have an issue. Like,
I mean, as Christians, we're not far off. We believe some wild things. Anytime a Christian tries to act like they don't believe wild things, they don't know what.
No, I remember the moments when I was in like middle school.
I don't want to talk. I don't want to hear that. When he was in middle school. Okay, let's go to why people cheat. Let's go here.
In terms of why people actually cheat, I heard you say on the Soft White Underbelly that you could have a PhD in infidelity because of how much you've dealt with this, right? Yes. And so the one thing you said you disagreed partially with him on is like the reasons why.
Can I speak to that though?
Yeah. So why do people cheat? Yeah.
Well, but when you said I'm not saying that's not a reason. It's absolutely a reason. My thing is like I just heard a brilliant guy, Mike Signorelli here in New York, talk about like it's the equivalent of talking about rats in New York City. Rats are a problem, but where there's no trash, there is no rats. So unless we want to talk about the garbage, why are we focusing on the rats? We don't really care about the rats because if we did, we fix the garbage. So to me, the sex sometimes, especially when it comes to cheating, it's a rat. Yeah, for sure, it's a thing. But what led to it? That's more what we were pointing to.
And I think it's about that ecosystem concept.
Yeah,
and it's like the breakdown of the physical relationship between spouses is to me one of the factors. Is it the primary factor? No, very often it's disconnection. Like that's why we're in no fault state because the truth's at the bottom of the bottomless pit. Like when you say, why did this marriage break down? It's like, well, she stopped sleeping with me. Well, he's sleeping with the secretary. Well, I'm sleeping with my secretary. She stopped sleeping with me. Well, I stopped sleeping with you. She stopped talking to me. Well, I stopped talking to you. Every time I talk to you, you just criticize me. Right. Well, I criticize you because all you ever do is say critical things. And then you sit here like, okay, so you're off to the races.
Yeah, what you get caught for isn't typically what was the catalyst.
Right.
It's what it looks like, but like you're saying, that litany is so common. You've done this before.
Yeah, a few times.
Yeah, communication is a endless loop that you can never really put your finger on as far as the origins of it. I mean, why'd you start this? Why'd you stop that? Right, the baby's crying because the mother's ignoring him. Well, the mother's ignoring the baby because he's crying. You can't ever get to the origins of that. Hello, I don't. Did you want me to put this up here? You probably didn't. I think you deleted it in the chat there. My parents have been married for 58 years. They got married when they were 2. Yeah, it's bad. Almost like he's doubting the man's commitment. Yeah, I think that's bad. I think that's bad if you're admitting that if you found out things were wrong, that you kind of like, forget this. So
it's like we don't have sex, and then you start breaking it down. It's like, this goes all the way back to the fact that you guys don't even say nice things to each other ever.
Yeah, but this is like something that I, as someone, talking to people within the context of a faith community, I wish there was a devil I could just blame it all on. What did the devil did that? Sorry, wasn't me. It was the devil. Darn guy. You know what I mean? I can't believe it. I was good. I was like doing my thing and everything else. And the devil just tapped me on the shoulder and I was like, what do you need me to do? All right, I'm gonna go do some blow. Like that. I wish I had that excuse. Like, I wish I could believe that that's a thing. But same thing with marriage. Like, I wish, the marriage was perfect and totally fine. And then he started sleeping with the secretary and that was it. She was the devil. She just came in and her cleavage was the thing that made him forget everything about the value of our family. And that was it. That's ridiculous. Yeah. It's ridiculous. Like that's not real.
I don't believe that either as a Christian man. I'm with you. Yeah, I think that's lunacy.
And but I think again, like, when Carl was speaking a minute ago, like one of the things that occurred to me in the context of, he was saying like, it's not easy being in the seat of being the person who, was like responsible for an infidelity and then having to sort of deal with, the public difficulty that creates for him and creates for his spouse, his spouse being an innocent person in the situation, whereas he's saying, he's sort of guilty of having done anything that he's done. But I would also push back insofar as one of the reasons why I find you and Laura very fascinating from where I'm sitting as someone who watches people that are in my office, they're divorcing, like they all have that in common, So like I have a pessimistic view of it, just like an oncologist is like, damn it, everybody has cancer. Like everybody I met today has cancer. It's like, right, you're an oncologist. If you were a cab driver, you wouldn't meet as many people with cancer. So like I'm a divorce lawyer. Everybody I meet who there was cheating and things like that, 99% of the time they're done. They're out. It's over. They're in my office. It's too late. I look at your situation and I listen to conversation with you and Laura, and I just think like, God, he must feel so loved. Like, because she had every possible reason and would have had a public applause and yet she was like, no, I see something. I'm committed to this person. Like, and I find myself thinking like, God, is anybody, because it's really easy to love you when you're like the most successful guy and charismatic and, you know, you celebrities and you got an 8-pack and the whole damn thing. But like, man, like this guy's on the ground right now. And he's on the ground because he fell. Like he's the one who stepped on the rake. And yet, like, nope, I love him. And I'm going to say I love him. And I'm going to say I'm committed to him. And to me, like, God, to feel that love must be like a superpower.
So that's, I think that sums up a lot of it. Is what we're dealing with today is that, you know, when everything's going good, it's easy to love that person. But when things are going bad, when they step on the rake, as he kept saying, or when, you know, there's a sickness that comes in, or somebody gets laid off, they lose their job, or they have a moment of crisis, the next thing you know, bam, you know, here you're sitting in this guy's office. So I think that's an issue that we got to really solve. Part of it is knowing what you're getting into at the beginning, having a counseling session, living in an ecosystem or an environment that is conducive to marriage and that pushes marriage and that does not celebrate the breakdown of divorce and all that. The Fairly Godmother says, hello. From my perspective, men weren't created to be monogamous. I may be wrong. I definitely agree with that. I definitely agree that men have a hard time being monogamous. It's just it's always been the way of the world. So you know, I don't know what we're gonna do about that. More than one woman is too much work. One at a time is all I can handle. Yeah. I don't want that either. At 52, I don't want to be juggling women. I don't want to be doing that. And there hasn't been many. I don't want to be juggling women.
Yeah, it is, and it's hard to manage it with I feel that more now. Initially, it was so shamey that I almost blocked that beautiful blessing of feeling that, because that's what it is. But when you are on your climb back to try to be a person worthy of that kind of grace again, it's like the last thing I was thinking about is she really loves me. It's more of like, oh my gosh, you know, it's like but yes, to what you're saying, it's exactly. There are days I wake up and I go, she really does love me. There's no other reason for her. There's no other reason for her to be here. So yeah, I think
which as a person of faith must be, because I of course can't separate that from the idea of God's love.
Hey Miles, if you want to come up a little bit later, I know last show you said that you want to come up. If you want to come up, let me know and I'll bring you up a little bit later. Somebody wrote happy tax day. I was doing my daughter's taxes here. I was doing my daughter's taxes a little bit earlier. So while she's sitting on her, I was making her do it in between sitting on her phone there. So she got to learn how to do it. So all right, hit the like button. And here we go.
Because the idea that like, well, God loves you no matter what. Like this is sort of a manifestation of that.
Yeah.
Like her love for you is a reflection of the love that you have faith in, which is that God loves me no matter what I do. There's nothing I can do that's so sinful that God will not love me anymore. And to me, like there is something so beautiful about that to me. And it doesn't require me. It doesn't require me to believe in God, to believe in that. Like I look at that. I look at her love for you and I go, that's beautiful. That's inspiring. That makes me want to be someone who loves that way and someone who's worthy of that love. And in my engagement towards her mirrors it. Like, because she loves me so much. Like I have every belief in the world. You would never have the issues you had again, because you have now battle tested that. And this woman has loved you as a verb, like love is a verb, not just the emotion through that. So to me, I look at that and I go, oh no, he's the safest bet in the world right now because he's felt that love in a real way.
Yeah, no, it's funny. It really rocked her faith as well, because God was so present at the center of our marriage as Christians, that it wasn't just I let her down. It was God. I was also trusting you more than him, and you allowed this to go down. And all I've done is be faithful and be diligent and do all the right things. And you were supposed to hold this together. And in fact, you did the opposite, right? That's her human experience in that moment.
Well, God hates marriage. If the stats are anything, like God's not the problem of evil. I still haven't reconciled in the way that you have. But like if the proof is in the pudding, like even though you're saying God calls us to marry, like man, he's might as well call us to jump out of airplanes without.
Or
parachutes.
maybe if we're gonna go with God hates marriage, we could definitely say maybe the devil hates marriage even more. So there's a flip side to that sucker. Maybe God loves it as much as we think, but maybe if marriage is done in a way that's supernaturally healthy, maybe it's potentially so dynamic, so great that it's worthy of all this targeted, struggle. There's a case to be made for that as well.
Why do Christian or faith-based marriages fail at the same rate?
Well, unfortunately, humans are faith-based as well. You can't take out your humanity. So to me, it's even more explosively evident with Christians that do get divorces, because you just find out real quick that people are people. Like you don't get to, we have different values, or so we should. We have different things we're supposed to lean on. But at the same time, maybe it's harder sometimes to be a Christian in marriage because you can't talk about all the stuff that leads to divorce. For instance, let's just say you're having an issue with sexual differences in the bedroom. I was a pastor for a very long time and know a lot of other pastors. I can tell you right now, it's the rare church that has a sexual therapist and counselor available. We have all kinds of premarital stuff. We'll put you through a course. We'll give you a certificate. We'll do all this stuff. But when you get married, it could be said that in the Christendom marriage prism, we just let you go. We hope it works out. No teaching, no help. No, there's a couple good books, but even if you get caught with one of those books, that feels weird. Like you don't want to be the Christian with a Tim Keller book on, godly sex and marriage like that. Even that feels weird. That has to change, or we're going to continue to see the church look no different than outside the church, because the issues that really matter in marriage, sometimes people can't talk about. So you can't sit there with a typical Christian community and be like, I hate my marriage. I regret it. That's a human thought. You need to be able to say it. But there's not space for that too often in the faith communities that we've been around. And I think when that changes, maybe we'll see the stats change a little bit. You have to be able to talk about real things.
Yeah, there's a simplicity. One of the things that, of course, is appealing about a faith community, any faith community, is the simplicity of answers that it offers. Like I've always said, what I like best about religion is that it teaches you to ask interesting questions. I think religion's at its worst when it tries to answer them, but asking interesting questions is really, really good. The part that I think Carl's absolutely spot on is like, a faith community and a marriage both exist within the broader zeitgeist of your culture, of the world as it stands right now, of the media environment that we're in, which is constantly, again, it's an ecosystem. It's constantly, moving and changing in different ways and unpredictable ways. Often second order effects we didn't predict happen, right? But I think fundamentally, when it comes to marriage, like you're signing on for something without giving a lot of thought to what it's going to be. Like the metaphor I've used in the past is, if you asked me or asked Carl when he was 20, you can have any car in the world. What car do you want? It would either be like a Ferrari, a Lamborghini, or like a muscle car. Yeah. It would have been one of the, most guys fall into one of those two categories. It would be a muscle car. It would have been
until you hit what, 40?
Right.
And then we're going Prius.
Then you're going Prius.
How much mileage?
Right. You're going to go Toyota Sienna in your 30s because you got the kids and you got a lot of stuff. Okay. So what if I said to you when you're 20, pick whatever car you want, you're going to have that car. And then you go, oh my God, I want a Ferrari. Great. By the way, that's the only car you're ever going to have. Wait, I'm sorry? What? Oh, that's the only car you're ever going to have. You can't have any other cars. You're not even allowed to ride any other cars. That's your car. That's your car. You picked your car. Wait, no. I picked the car I wanted because I'm 20. Like it looked nice and it had a loud engine. I wasn't thinking about where will the car seats fit, or how does it sit, and I might have some sciatic pain because of my my herniated disc. Like I wasn't thinking about when I'm 80 getting out of a Lamborghini. So what's marriage? Marriage is you're 19, you're 20 years old. You're like, oh my God, she's so pretty. Oh my God, he's so handsome and he's tall. I can wear heels with him. Okay, we should get married. Yeah, let's do it. And everybody's going, yay, you're getting married. There's gonna be cake and we're gonna have a party and everybody signs on. Meanwhile, you just picked the car you're gonna drive for the rest of your life. Have you talked about, do you want to have kids? What's your faith? If by the way, I lost my faith or suddenly found faith, would that change the dynamic of our relationship? What if I became a vegan? Would you be cool with that? What if I'm a vegan now and I said, I don't want to be anymore, I want to eat pork chops? Are we gonna break up? Like nobody, you picked your car and you signed on for the car.
This is all stuff you got to think about. Look at that face. Look where I left them off at. Look at that face. This is all stuff you got to think about. And a lot of people are not having these types of conversations. I can appreciate if this brother is, I'm not going to do the sex before marriage. I can appreciate if he's saying that his church provides certificate and some type of help and all that. I can appreciate that. Play a few more minutes of this, and I want to fast forward to is polygamy ideal for men, and get to that.
Can I lovingly interject and double down? Because to me, when I really have the nuts and bolts conversations about this, that's what I point to. Is if there is a huge flaw in the Christendom marriage cycle, it's the age in which we push people to get married. Because me and Laura laugh. When we got married, do you think that she was looking across at a guy who, like, I'm finding out who I am today. I won't be the same guy tomorrow. I'm 46. I'm just getting cooking. Like by the time I'm 50, I'm really going to have a good idea about this much of who I am. Like that's the nature of what you find out. Your self-care, your mental health, your journey. Like this is all stuff you start to learn as your brain changes. But we're going to look at a 22-year-old and we're going to pump up this marriage. It's going to be the greatest thing ever. I don't know what the answer is, but I am really curious about, even in my own house, I got 2 girls, right? And I'm not going to say you can't get married young. I am going to say, my love, please understand. Take as long as you can to find out who you are. And if you really like that guy, let's figure out a way to make this, resourceful. But let's take our time. And this rages against typical Christian wisdom because people are going to freak out. I can already see it. Like, once you've been through a couple wars, once you've done this for a while, and we both have from 2 different angles, the fact that you can get married that young, to me, man, I think me and Laura still would have got married, but I don't know. Like, what do you know at this age? Like, that's a great analogy. I've never done the car analogy, but I'm just saying.
My grandmother, I got married when I was 22 the first time. And my grandma used to tell me, you don't even know yourself. And she got married when she was 15. And he's right. You're always discovering yourself. I didn't know who I was at 22. I didn't know who I was at 32. 42, I started to figure it out. At 52, still probably figuring it out. Who knows where I'll be at 62. By the time you really figure this thing out, it's almost the ride's almost over, if you know what I'm saying. So yeah, it's crazy. It's crazy. Let's get some comments here. Yeah, she thinks so. It's a blessing in doing your daughter's taxes. Sure. So I'll drop the link in a little bit. You and anyone else can come in. You just click on the link, and then you got to access it. You don't have to have your camera on if you're not made up and all that stuff. He reminds you of David Byrne. I don't know who that is. Sexual compatibility is huge in a relationship. I think it's big. I don't think it's as big as the other things, though. I'll maintain that it's huge, but I don't think it's as big as the other thing, as the other stuff. Because I mean, I'm not saying it's not important. I'm not saying that you shouldn't know, but other stuff is vastly more important to me. Was I a good police officer? I'm scared of police officers. No, I was a great police officer, if I say so myself. Um, you might date one, but you have to look at everything. Well, you got to look at everything, no matter what they do. One of the major issues with marriage is that most individuals are not sacrificial. You got to put other people first. The family has to, particularly for men. I think this is what a lot of men are struggling with. You want to know what men are struggling with when they look at marriage from this vantage point, from this day, from this time, is they are looking at a lot of ladies who are refusing to be sacrificial, who are refusing to put the family first, who are willing to blow up their marriages because of a fleeting relationship, or their work husband, or the guy's not talking enough, or he's not communicating correctly, or whatever. I just think that's one of the biggest things. And guys have put and want to put their families first. They go to work for the families. They do overtime for the families. They work 60 hours a week. They'll get up in the middle of the night to do whatever, to sacrifice for their family, to pick their wives up. To your wife's brother got arrested. You'll get up and do whatever you got to do to help him out with that. But they want that same level of sacrifice in return. And I think that a lot of guys are saying that they aren't seeing that type of reciprocity in the relationship. So, yeah. Drew Peterson pretty much screwed up the public perception of a police officer. Drew Peterson pretty much screwed up the public's perception of police officers. I don't know who Drew Peterson is. But the police officers have been blowing up their own image. So I talk about this a lot. So yeah. Are you still trying? A lot of us are still trying to figure things out. Yeah, it's true. That's true, Rhonda. That's true. Lifetime of learning. Yeah. Yep. Okay, here we go. I want to get to let's fast forward a little bit here. Is polygamy right for men? Or
I mean, the whole thing around like Andrew Tate, I think, is interesting because there's this whole culture of masculinity now that's emerged on the scene, that's pushing back on kind of more progressive ideals of the past 10 years and doing it instead of this like unashamed, bold, like I'm just gonna like be in your face way. And the philosophy for him in terms of like we're talking about sexual urges and the way that we're wired and everything, he keeps saying, as is people who think like him, is that men are wired to be with multiple women and that women are wired to be with one man. And so that's not polygamy, it's polygyny. And then he starts pointing back to, the Bible of like, the Old Testament of like, the kings had like 5,000 wives. And
he doesn't use that, does he?
No, he does.
No, he doesn't.
For sure.
Andrew Tate, you do not use that.
So the three levels,
the
levels in which he talks about, he's saying that the way we think about marriage right now, I guess, would be marriage 3.0. Marriage 2.0 would be the traditional ideals of like 100 years ago. And that like, we're just
one man. I just can't believe we found out that Matthew watches Andrew Tate. That's why. That's my takeaway right now. I'm riveted.
One man, one woman. And then he's saying marriage 1.0 is this whole idea that we need to just get back to of like, there's one man that provides for this little clan. It doesn't matter if he has sex with a woman, gets her pregnant, and then basically he's responsible for her and the kid. And that you just need to be like a high value man.
I mean, hey, if we're allowed, hold on, if we're allowed to create our own mantras in our own system for sex, that's what he's done. Hey, go for your life. I'm going to stick with kind of what I don't feel like when it comes to the sexual wiring of people. Again, here's the way with my son, I've often said sex is so explosively powerful that God put it in extraordinary confines to make sure that it doesn't do damage where it should do and be a blessing. And that's how it's like, no, you're not going to not have sex with multiple women because it's not going to feel good. It's going to feel awesome. It doesn't mean that it's right and that it's going to be the most resourceful thing for your life. So anything that is explosive, it's always mired in controversy and misinformation. Sex, money, primarily. These are the things that get people tripped up. Why would that be? Because if you get these right, there's a lot of fruit to your life. If you get one of these wrong, there's a lot of damage, a lot of carnage. So when I hear new thinking, and Andrew Tate's that's not new. People have been making up their own definitions to suit what works for them forever. We all do it to a degree. I just know from experience and from what I see God lay out, the way we talked about it, I think can change drastically. But in the space that I do know this for sure, like when sex is healthy and it's right in a marriage, it is special. It is different. It is beautiful. It is a totally different thing, because I feel like that's what it could, it can easily be said. That's why God created it. So it's an interesting time we live in, because we're talking around stuff rather than point right at it. But I still go back to, I'm not a traditionalist, but I do know it's like, okay, if I'm a Christian and I believe that God set up marriage like this and sex like this and supposed to work together, that makes a lot of sense. We have made that horribly hard and difficult. And then we start talking about the plan is wrong. I don't think God was wrong. I don't think the original design of sex was wrong. I don't think the original design of why God wanted people to be married was wrong. I think what has been wrong is humanity. And there's grace for that. But at the same time, when we start talking about this structure, I feel like I sometimes want to put my hand up and be like, hey, marriage, the idea of marriage is not as crazy as we're making it sound. We're just fitting it into our insanity of modern day. And of course it sounds archaic. Of course it sounds weird. Of course it's weird to look at a 25-year-old New York City and say, oh, you're going to control every sexual urge you have. You're going to ask God to give you grace to push through it. And you're going to save yourself. Like, that stuff does sound insane. But that's kind of why I'm a Christian.
But that's also, very well said. And what's interesting is, we come from such different places ideologically, but when my own sons, when they were teenagers, I remember sitting them down and saying to them, because again, from a secular point of view, devoid of an underlying religious narrative, although informed by or infused by, I remember sitting them down and saying, look, there's no such thing as sex without consequences. All sex has consequences. Yeah. Sometimes those consequences are emotional. It changes the bond between people. It changes the power dynamic in a relationship.
That takes a maturity for men to figure out that all sex has a consequence. It's not just the physical, whether you catch a disease or have a baby, but it has a consequence. There's emotional links. And I think that as I talk about the woke ideas that have been propagated, they said the last 10 years, I would go back to the institution or the creation of the pill, abortion laws and all that, and free sex and all that kind of stuff. Women trying to, quote unquote, do what men can do from an emotional standpoint. I think evolution created, we got to this point, whether you believe in evolution of God or some intermingling thereof. I just think that men had to be wired to be more emotionally unattached when they engage in this type of thing, so they could go out into the field and do what they had to do and be out in the work, going away to war, going away on hunting trips, hunting down woolly mammoths and whatever else they had to do, without the strong emotional or as strong emotional attachments to what's going on at home. They had to be able to function when they were out in society or out doing whatever they had to do. That's what I think. I'm not saying that men are just totally 100% unattached. I think that we know that, guys can definitely be attached, right? You sleep with somebody's woman, quote unquote. I mean, a lot of times these guys resort to violence, all that kind of stuff, right? So there is a protectionism aspect to it. So we'll continue on a little bit there.
Sometimes they're real and tangible: pregnancy, STDs, all those kinds of things. But I remember talking to my sons about if you don't ever think that there is such a thing as sex that has no consequences. And one of the things that Carl was just saying when he's talking about, saying to a 25-year-old, yeah, you're going to push through and resist all those urges. The part that I think there is value in the quote unquote manosphere, red pill space, those kinds of things, is saying, you're not just going to do that as an exercise in stoicism, like to prove, like it's like an ice bath. Like you're just going to do it to show you can tough it out through that. No, you're not doing an ice bath just so you can be like, hey, I can stay submerged in ice water for look how tough I am. No, this is going to actually increase my testosterone levels. It's going to help inflammation. There's reasons to do it. There's reasons to do it. There's reasons to be monogamous. There's reasons to be committed to one person fully. There are reasons to not get distracted by other things. They can be faith-based. They can be totally secular and pragmatic. They can be epidemiological. There's so many reasons why someone might choose to have a monogamous, committed relationship with another human being and say, this is my person and I'm going to focus on them and not be distracted.
So you believe in monogamy?
Listen, saying do you believe in monogamy is like saying, do you believe in that mug? That mug exists. Like, monogamy is a way of approaching relationships. Do I think, when I look at the relationship permutations in romantic relationships, that there is a better one than monogamy? No, I think monogamy makes sense. By the way, and I'm not defending Andrew Tate, but I'm agnostic as to Andrew Tate. I've actually not consumed as much of his content as you apparently have. We need to talk about this. But I have to tell you, like, one of the things that I've heard in the, again, manosphere space, which we cannot deny, is if you have an island with 100 women and one man, and you come back in 5 years, you've got a civilization. If you have an island with 100 men and one woman, and you come back in 5 years, you've got like 99 dead men and one woman and maybe a kid or two. Like, so the reality is that it's not that illogical for someone to say, a woman can be impregnated by one man a year, basically. But a man can impregnate 10 women today if he wants to, if he's motivated. So the reality is there is a biological element to sex. I know that's a terrible.
That's a lot of motivation for 10. Whew. Maybe we can give you 2 or 3, maybe. Does he believe in monogamy? I don't want to continue on with that. I kind of want to get through that. Let's go to this. The sex We'll play a little bit more of it, I guess.
No,
No,
heretical
actually,
thing to
and let
say.
me know. It's not. It's just true. I think it's hardwiring is a real term.
Sure.
And I think one of the questions I like to bring up is, what do you want to drive your life? So if my sexual desire gets the steering wheel, I'm definitely not married today. My whole life looks different. And I think that has to be part of the conversation, because and that's when it comes back to my faith. So as a Christian, I'm putting my sexual desire down too. I hope I don't have to, but at the end of the
I think what we're getting at is like, we were talking about the no sex before marriage thing, and the way that the church tends to edge on this extreme over here of like the way that's teaching and leaving people completely unequipped.
Mhm.
And so then there's a pendulum that has happened with millennials that is now hookup culture. I'm just going to engage every feeling that I have. And so that's also like not helpful teaching.
Overcorrection is the greatest enemy of our society.
And so there's actually, which I think is really fascinating, there's a sex recession happening amongst Gen Z of people.
I wonder if the attorney here, I wonder if his, what was I going to say? I wonder if we talk about marriage 2.0, and that would be, the modern marriage that we know now, and they're versus what it was, 1,000 years ago. But I wonder what his philosophy is on Western marriage, right? I don't think I've never heard him address this. Again, this is only like this second thing, and I don't think he's addressed it thus far, unless I fast forwarded through it. What his perspective is on, what the manosphere, and he had a chance to say it before, the manosphere, their complaint about the marriage laws and the way that they are. The first video that I played, the warm-up video, certainly he addressed it. But I wonder what his thoughts are. Is that driving the divorce rates? If we didn't have those types of laws, would the divorce rates drop dramatically, or would the marriage rates increase?
People that are deciding like, oh, we kind of like need a new sexual standard because me just hooking up with anybody is not really leading to the destination that I want to. And so there's like a middle ground. I think that, first of all, I think a lot of interchange ideas are dangerous.
Now he's rolling.
We do.
you know you can post off this sucker, okay?
So I mean, I think
Next episode's gonna have a shape.
we do a lot of cultural listening, and so he's just become very popular. But I think
Live
that
pod from Romania.
We're not judging.
Matthew, Mighty Pursuit, Romania edition.
so I mean, the one thing, and you talked about this heavy on the with the psychologist is, I think, yes, people observe this dynamic in culture of women being attracted to money and status, men with money and status, and then other men see that of like, oh well, if I had more money or if I had more fame, then women would be attracted to me.
That's true.
And then women, and then men, and then women see other women who are beautiful or look a particular way, and oh well, all the men want her, and then it makes them get plastic surgery and cosmetic surgery. I need to look like a particular way. And so
Also true.
when it comes to relationships, I think a lot of people are confused because it gets to this place of like, can I actually find someone who's like a right fit for me, that is committed in the way that you were talking about earlier? Like, oh, we're making this commitment to each other. I'm here for you. Why are we doing this? Whatever. When it seems like a lot of the reasons, at least from a secular cultural standpoint, the reason why people are getting into arrangements seem like very surface level reasons for why.
And fairly logical.
I mean, and you've talked about people that are on their fifth divorce or
Well,
prenup.
let me throw something in here, because I'm interested in your statistical analysis of this. Because we go back to sex for a second, because it's linked. I've heard it said, I heard some guy say years ago, and I still think it's true. If sex is good in the marriage, it's about 10% of the focus, about the activity of it. If it's bad, it's 90%. And I found it to be really true, because if they're
I definitely agree with that. I've never heard that analogy or that statistic. If it's good, it's 10%, right? There's so many other things to think about. The kids, the car, the money, the house, the health, the aging grandparents. There's so many other things to think about. But if it's bad, that's all you can think about. I'm not getting it. This, that, and the other. What's up with this? What's up with that?
if you have a healthy, communicative, sexual relationship with the person that you're married to, it's almost like it's off the table. Meaning we can now get on with other stuff in life, but if it's not there, everything seems to almost stem from there. And it's funny to me, because if I sat down with a couple, and Laura and I have the privilege and now responsibility to help couples that are in different varying stages of this, like, what's the longest conversation that you've had about sex without having it? I mean, people's ears turn red right away. And I'm like, you don't have to answer because your neck has hives, right? The fact that that's a preposterous premise for a lot of Christian couples to have, that to me is sad.
Not just Christian. I mean, we had a secular sex therapist, Ian Kern, on. He said the same thing, that all the couples he meets, no matter what they believe, haven't said 100 words about sex with each other.
So to my point, with Laura and I, like, can you find the person? I don't know. Can you create the relationship? I think that's where I'm putting my money, because what I'm finding, and we had degrees of this. Like, I know people often think when you have a big marriage blow up, like the whole thing was bad. We had a really happy marriage in some ways. We had some huge cracks, but on this side of it, we have detailed conversations about sex, and it's pretty normal. And I came through a lot of addictive things. You know, there was a time where I thought I could identify as a sex addict. Whether that's true or not, other people can opine on. But I'm saying I was deep in the throes of trying to figure out, what am I going to do with all this wiring? And I can say that the more open and the heavier the communication, the more ease there is. And that's where creation can happen. Like, but I think what we're seeing is no communication, no creation, and then a detachment, and now marriage is the problem. Like, what would happen
Yeah.
is if we spent as much. I'm not interested in you sharing Bible verses anymore. Go away with that. We got you got that covered. What do you when do you talk about what kind of sex that you like? What's awkward for you? What's not awkward for you? What are you attracted to? What are you? These have been offensive in some circles. We can't figure out why the Christian stats are very similar to the non-Christian stats. Those are the only ones I can speak to because I'm a Christian. And I do think it's
see, I'm like bursting while you're saying this because
am I wrong?
no,
I'm
I totally
wrong.
agree with you actually to the point where I'm like, I want to preach, you know, like because one of the things I love about, again, I feel like I'm fanboying out with Laura, but one of the things that the two of you talked about recently, you talked about, and I loved it. I remember when I heard it because I was working out, I was doing squats, and I remember I had it in the headphones and I started laughing. I thought I'm the only person in the squat rack laughing. But he was saying how they were having a fight, an argument, and he goes, and in the middle of the argument we stopped and we went, hey, look at us. Like, look at us having this argument. And like, we're just in here, man. We're just doing it. Yeah. And I laughed and I thought, did this guy read my book? Because like he was giving an example in real life of something I was like hypothesizing about, which is, and I was just thinking it as you were talking right now, because you said like, we all talk about like the biblical context of sex and marriage, but like, when do we have the conversation about like, what do you like and what do I like? And I thought, why not? When do we have the conversation about why is it so weird to talk about what we like? Like, who's safer than the person you're marrying?
Okay, so never have I felt closer to Laura than, she knows, like, I'm like, if you marry the guy who's recovering from addictions, you know that the answer is a plan, right? That's one thing you learn in rehab and in circles. If you don't have a plan, it does not matter. And I should have said this for my own freaking pod, but I'll tell you here, I came to Laura with like a sexual plan, like a calendar. And she looked at me and she was like, okay. And I'm like, let me explain it. Okay. But you can't want
to hear that conversation.
You can't want me to be a super accountable, planned out, intentional man everywhere else. And then just wing it on the sex thing. Won't work with my new brain. So here's my suggestion for a 7-day schedule. And we laughed. We had so much fun with it. Do we stick with it? It was more about, I got to be honest with you. If we're hitting around this number here, and the Thursday's user's choice, Mondays you lead, Wednesdays I lead, Saturdays, let's see if we feel like it. But the laughter and the rhythm of that, like, because on Saturdays, like, she'll come in, like we have a rule about gray sweatpants. Like, I think the gray sweatpants or flannel PJs are from the devil. I think they've killed more marriages. I'm half joking, but I have a joke with Laura. Like, if I see you in the flannel PJs, you're telling me without telling me, tonight we're watching TV. We'll laugh because some night she'll come in, she'll be like, it's Saturday on your schedule. It says flannel PJs. And it's not like it's just there. We're able to talk about what matters, and then it's not there anymore.
What you're talking about, the part I admire of it, is you're talking about how you talk about it.
Yeah.
So I think that the talking about it thing is definitely important. Communication matters. And one of the biggest things is when people don't talk about it, right? Or the awkwardness that they're alluding to is that, a lot of guys, I think, will shut down because they may want something. I'm speaking from a guy who's I've talked to. I don't know if women would feel the same way. Is that they would feel as if they can't open up to their woman, tell them what they want without the feeling of number one, rejected, and number two, being somehow demonized, right? Particularly if you come from a Christian household or whatever. Oh, I can't do that because that's of the devil or whatever. What was that movie? The Brothers? Was it The Brothers? D.L. Hughley's character couldn't get his wife wouldn't give him head, and they almost broke up, almost got a divorce over that. I think that's the movie. The Brothers. Anyway, so that causes guys to shrink. The last show that we did, we were looking at guys who are not seen as masculine. And why aren't they seen as masculine? Why is it that they had this tough exterior or exhibited these masculine traits at one time, then didn't get in these marriages, where as they are rightly saying, this is the one person you got to be able to be open with, be vulnerable with, tell them your fantasies, tell them what you want to do. And if they look at you as if you got 3 heads, or you're demonic, or you're I just don't feel comfortable doing that, which is fine. I'm not asking you to do anything you don't feel comfortable with. But if we can't even have the conversation without funny looks and then treating me differently the next day or whatever, then that's going to cause men to shut down. And I think that's the communication aspect that has to be talked about a little bit more.
Conversation about the conversation. One of the things I've always said about people is you learn how to fight when you're in a fight. Why? It's the worst possible time to learn how to fight is when you're in a fight. That's the worst time. Any other time would be a better time to learn. So like, if you're getting married, why don't you say, hey, listen, right now we're so into each other, we like each other so much, we're going to get in a fight at some point, guarantee it. It's probably my fault. I'm probably going to say or do something really dumb. I do that sometimes. When we get in that fight, do you need a minute? Are you that person? Like, I need a minute, I need to process this, calm down, and then we can talk about it? Or are you we cannot go to bed angry, we have to talk about this right now because I'm not going to be able to think straight and it's going to fester if we don't talk about it, so we got to talk about it now. Can we have that conversation when we're not in a fight? When we have this abundance of goodwill? Like, do we have to, like, listen, that is a phenomenal conversation they had purely as a function of the fact that he had just gotten out of rehab and was like, okay, everything's just burned to the ground and we need to figure this out. That conversation, I know it was inspired by that. And in that sense, there's some beauty that came from the roses grew from the pile of manure. But I'm telling you, like, what is preventing anyone who's watching this, who's in a relationship, from when it's over, watch the whole thing, honestly, but then when it's over, don't pause and walk away. Sitting down with your partner and saying, hey, like, why is it so weird? Like, why don't we talk about sex more? Like, why don't we, like, we do it and it's so great. And then, but like, I'm sure there's things that we both would like different. Like, how could we talk about it that it would feel safer? Like, could we write each other an email? Would that be easier? Could we like make like once a week, we'll write something on a card? Like, you guys get to make these rules. Like, and by the way, there's nothing like that could be appealing to religious people, non-religious people, gay, straight, whatever. Like, there's nothing preventing you from doing it how you want to do it. And yet we just keep sticking it into the same boxes that aren't working for anyone. And then going, I don't know why it didn't work out. It never works out that way. So why don't we Uber it? Why don't we do it different?
Because we are prescriptive, and it's a lot more fun to tell people what, like, Christians have been notoriously bad at going, you tell me what works for you. So you, for instance, I'll never forget, I heard a preacher one time, if this, you do this, do it. I'm just saying for me, he was like, men, before you sleep with your wife, you need to both kneel before your bed and pray and have God bless what follows. And I saw guys writing this down. I'm like, are you out of your mind? The last thing I'm doing, I promise you, when I'm going to have a romantic night with my wife, is we're going to pray about it right then. Now, I prayed about it in the morning. That doesn't work for me, right? But I know enough to know that that's okay for him. But we've done a bad job of being able to stretch out that parameter a little bit. Say, hey, at least preacher, just say it works for you. Because if we don't do that, then you start getting these really weird silos of people who are like, I'm praying again, kind of killed the mood again. But that's what Christians do. Christians don't do that. Christians can do a lot of things. There's a lot of different ways, and there's a lot of different rhythms that you can develop. And me and Laura are always working on rhythms. And I promise you, it's the when I can't hide a smile, because if you can take the thing that was the most damaging.
Yeah, I definitely agree with you, Miles. I mean, sometimes some of these conversations are hard to empathize with, you know, to really understand, you know, their dynamic is different, right? Their generation, their worldview, you know, it's hard to, but definitely we can agree on some aspects, particularly about communication. Let's go to, are we picking the wrong people here?
And one of our recent guests was a relationship expert who's blown up, Jillian Turecki. And I asked her why she thinks 50% of marriages end in divorce. And she was saying because she thinks people don't select well. And I think people don't select well in the sense that they don't have the conversations. It was almost like exactly what you were saying about conversations. What do we believe spiritually? What do we believe about kids? What do we believe about this stuff?
I got something to say about that.
And then, you know, it has to do with the litter. I go on these dating apps, I go on Hinge, I go on Tinder, and the selection of people, it seems like what they want is shallow, or their intentions aren't pure, or what do they really want out of me?
Well, I'm fuzzy on what constitutes a pure intention and doesn't.
Well,
it's the same
I need a
with
buzzer.
economy.
Next time we do this, I need a buzzer.
Okay,
So or like a flag.
No, but you were bursting. I want to hear.
No, I'm just saying. Here's where something in me pushes back on that, because like who my wife is today at 46, she didn't show up on paper like that, nor did I. And I feel like when we put like that, whoever said that, like we're picking wrong. What are you talking about? Like, how can you pick who's going to be great year 20 when you have a mental breakdown?
You don't think that there's wrong?
Hold on. How do you pick who's going to be there when your daughter? When you go through some things, gosh dang, give me a second. So when you go through some things, the best part of you can come out then. It's like picking a team before you play ball is one thing. And then you get on the court, you're like, that dude sucks. He has the body of LeBron James, a great outfit, and he can't play at all. I feel like there is a part of meeting this person that's on you to bring out the best of them. And yeah, you can pick generally. I think there's some truth to that, but to act like people are picking wrong, I would probably ask a different question. Like, after you've picked, what did you pour in? Perhaps that's more revealing than the bad pick, because I'm a terrible pick. When Laura picked me at 21, what the hell did she know about who I was? I had nothing.
But you've said it before. You know what grows is what you water.
Correct.
And so look, you know, and I'm not trying to personalize this for you, but you've been very open about the struggles that you had and the growth that came from it. I am willing to bet in this chapter of your life, cultivating your marriage and seeing your marriage as a priority and something that should be watered on a regular basis is a higher priority than it was when you were at the height of celebrity and the height of fame. I'm not saying you didn't care about your wife, you didn't cultivate your marriage.
I held it.
I will tell you, as someone like our options and priorities change. Like I represent a lot of famous people. I represent a lot of very wealthy people. And I will tell you, their priorities very often are money, fame, the new project they're working on.
That was basically.
Of course, like they're going to make this their number one priority, because why? I'm in this rarefied area. Yeah, everybody's married. I'm a celebrity. Like I'm hanging out with the coolest people. I'm in demand. I'm writing books. I'm doing things. People buy tickets to see me talk. And you want me to sit around and be like, so how are you feeling today? Everything's good. What do the kids do today? You want that to be my priority? Are you crazy? This is a chance. I got to take this. And by the way, then I'm going to get a bunch of fruit and we'll all share it together. And so it's good for you too. We're doing this for you, babe. That's what I'm doing. Like, that's like, come on, I get it. So real, so human, so true. But I totally agree with Carl that like when you're in that early phase, that like early marriage, because again, when you said like, well, I'm not, at 46, Laura and I aren't who we were when we met. Well, I hope not.
Yeah.
Like, I hope you're not at 46 who you were when you were 20 or 30 or 40.
Yeah.
And by the way, I hope that when you're 55, you're going to get to like, I hope you're constantly growing, evolving, changing in positive ways. But I mean, fundamentally to suggest that like, there isn't some tremendous value in saying early on in a relationship, we've got to be in constant, we got to keep our eye on this ball.
Yeah.
Got to.
I think there's a better template, Jim. I don't know. I'm not going to, I want to speak for you, but I feel like on this one, it's the same language. Like I'm less concerned about make a good pick, but what's the template after you've picked? That to me tells a greater story than, because to a degree, you're picking a person and I was fighting a wave of emotion, just thinking about the stuff you go through as a married couple. And, when we've been through tough times, like who has arisen in those moments in my wife, it's like, I just feel like you have to have, maybe we can do a better job of giving people a template, like communication early, like talking about some stuff that, why wait until post-apocalyptic infidelity to start getting real and transparent? I didn't have an option. So I'm not going to, that was my path. It didn't have to be like that. It was. So we're here now. Couldn't be happier. And it's like, you don't have to go through life-threatening, marriage-altering, trauma-producing for your children vibes to get to a place of clarity. You can just start with a conversation. Right? And I think that to me it's more trendy to talk about picking. That sounds cool as a relationship expert. I can see where there's a lot of viral ground to be taken there when it comes to.
But I can teach you how to do it, and here's what to look for, and here's what's not.
But I do think that there are people, if you pick them, and you're not, if you're one of those people and you're not in a place to be in a relationship, I'm going to be in a relationship, I'm going to be in a codependent relationship.
No, there's red flags for sure.
There are red flags.
There's some basics.
Of course. To suggest that like, oh yeah, you just throw a dart, whoever you get, you're going to water that seed and it'll all work out. That's crazy. No one would say that.
No.
But again, it's like dandruff and decapitation. Like I don't think it has to be like it's who you pick. So pick careful. Or it's, well, whatever you cultivate is going to turn into the thing that no, you got to turn a watermelon seed into a pumpkin. That's not how watermelon seeds develop, no matter how you take care of them.
Yeah.
But I think you do have to say to yourself, look, there's parts of this that I can do something. It's too easy to say, well, that's just how things are. Because it takes all culpability. It's one of the reasons why I always had a problem with the concept of the devil. Because it was just too easy. It was just too easy to be like, oh, it was the devil who did that. Like, it's like, oh, the devil. Like, it's just the whole concept. And again, I don't want to go too off track on this, but like my issues with religious thought have always been like that, oh, God cured my cancer. Right. The cancer God gave you. God gave you cancer, then he cured your cancer, but you're only giving him, credit for the part that was fun, that was good, that was positive. You didn't give him, he gave me cancer. So I don't get the logic of my partner, I picked my partner well, or I picked my partner poorly, or it's purely in the cultivation of what it is that I did. I think that's an oversimplification. It would be better to say, there's nuance to this, there's elements to this. Like there's what is good, what is bad, what is the work of God, what is the work of the devil? Like all of this is a function of, look, there's this totality, and you don't always know. Like so much of what I know for sure, it would be easy to say, I wish I made none of the mistakes I made. Right? If I'm Carl, I would say about my own life, I wish I'd never made any of the mistakes that I made. I wouldn't be who I am, where I am, if I hadn't made those mistakes. And I learned so much from those mistakes. And the pain that any mistake I've ever made caused someone else, I am profoundly sorry for, and it's hard for me. And I don't like to look at it because I know I didn't ever want to hurt anybody who I've hurt. But like, I also love where I am, who I am. And I wouldn't be where I am and who I am if it wasn't for those mistakes that I've made. So the idea to me of like just commitment, like marriage can be at its core another person saying to you, look, I am committed to this. Like we are going to walk this path together. And we are going to be here for each other. And we're going to be fully in this thing. Good, bad. We're going to talk about it honestly. We're going to talk about things we don't even want to talk about sometimes. We're going to give each other space. And we're also not going to give each other unlimited space. To me, like, what's wrong with it? Who could disagree with that?
That's really good. Yeah. I mean, we're talking about the selection process with marriage. And so what do you see this? You see the marriage end so often then. So then talking about selection, what are the primary reasons why marriage then fails? And you're
always said that the answer everybody wants me to give is infidelity, financial impropriety. In the rarefied era I'm blessed to represent now, celebrity, waning celebrity, like where it's a celebrity couple and one is staying popular and the other celebrity is waning. Comparison being the thief of joy, like you can get as esoteric as you want to. What I would say is disconnection. Disconnection is why disconnection is why infidelity happens. Disconnection from yourself, disconnection from your partner, sometimes by virtue of your disconnection from yourself, and sometimes deliberately as a disconnection from your partner, either by neglect. In the law, we're very interested in definitions. And there's a difference between recklessness and negligence. Negligence is a failure to perceive a substantial and unjustifiable risk of serious harm. Recklessness is a conscious disregard for a substantial and unjustifiable risk of harm. So it's the difference between a failure to perceive and a conscious disregard. So I think every marriage, every relationship fails by some combination of negligence and recklessness. And that's it. And so everything else is just the names for it or the manifestation of the thing. But fundamentally, it's either negligence, where we failed to perceive some significant thing in ourselves or our partner, or the combination of the two, the you, the me, and the we. Those three things that are all important. You're important, I'm important, and we are important. And we have to water all three. I want me to be me, and I want to keep my characteristics of me. I want you to be you and keep characteristics of you. And then I want we, because everybody either goes all in on me, all in on you, that's codependence, or all in on we. And then you and me is gone. We're gone now. And by the way, that's what we fell in love. We fell in love with you and me. We fell in love with two individual autonomous beings that then came together and said, let's do this thing together. Let's be you, me, and we. So to me, this connection is at the core of every person who's ever set foot in my office. And so if you can find the way, and that's what I try to write about in my writing, is I try to talk about how do we stay connected. And I think it goes back to what I said earlier, which is it's lots of, no single raindrop is responsible for the flood, but the flood comes and it's lots of little raindrops. You know, it's another winter day here in New York. And like, there is no piece of snow that's so heavy that it breaks the branch. And yet one piece of snow is the one that was heavy enough that it broke the branch. That's all that divorce is. Divorce is just these little tiny death by 1,000 paper cuts. And by the time you're in my office, it's too late.
It's
You know,
no, you go.
I was going to say, it's funny. It's so beautifully said, especially the raindrop. When you go through what I went through, you get cheating. That's a salacious thing. And you almost want to tell people, man, it's such low hanging IQ fruit, right? Like, I disconnected from Laura on our journey because I was not brave enough or didn't know enough to be honest about a lot of things. And it led to that. But to write off, you know, oh, guys like you always cheat, or this leads to cheat. It's like, man, I get it. That you can say that if you want, but understand the disconnection is the real issue here. It's not, it wasn't some other, remember back in the day, Maury Povich would have those shows, and you'd have the guy, and then you have the woman that he cheated with, and the wife would jump over the guy and fight the girl. Right. And I always want to say, it's not her problem. Right. She didn't do any vows. That's the easier fight. The easier fight is to attack this mythical other woman than it is to actually sit down and figure out where you disconnected. That's why people love to do it. And I just want to double down on that and say the disconnection factor. And it's also, that's why it's so hopeful, especially if you don't believe it's all on your own power. So for me to stay connected to Laura, now being healthy, I got a lot more strength, but there's still going to come an end. Where my faith does come in is when I come to the end of myself and I'm out of my own power, reasoning, or smart things I picked up. That's where you bank on God giving you grace, which is more than you deserve and more than you have. And I feel like that could be something that we can hold up as Christians to say, like, hey, in those moments where you run out of human rational thinking, I don't know where you go, but where I'm going, you know, is to the one who put us in this sucker in the first place. And so there's a little bit of hope there for me.
So much though of what you talk about on Lights On, in the conversations with Laura and in the conversations even with others, is about maintaining connection.
Yeah.
All right, I'm going to stop it off right there. So you guys can go over and check out the rest of that. I did put the link in the chat if anybody wants to come up and talk about it. I know that Miles wanted to talk. If you want to come up and talk about whatever, you can go over and watch the rest of this on Mighty Pursuit. 200,000 people that watched it. And let's see. Let's read some comments here. Content like this should be mandated viewing for all those aspiring to serious relationships. The content of this video is underrated. 2012, 2024, I had the worst Christmas imaginable. The love of my life left me. My backbone, joy, giver, and better half. We have been separated since then with 2 kids. Now she wants a divorce. My whole world is crumbling before my eyes. Oh, God. What hurts the most is the fact that I was the cause. I was drowned with work, and sometimes we did not communicate for months. I am a marine engineer, so it was difficult to stay in touch when I was absent. At first, she could take it, but it later kept creating a void. If you're reading this, never neglect your partner. I have been the same since. I would do everything to get her back. Oh man, I hope he successful. This really wasn't a debate. I was just about to say that. This really wasn't a debate. The word is just for the numbers draw. As much as I was supportive, sharing information is beautiful. Marriage is an ecosystem. James, one of the most important voices of media today. Let's see. Yeah. Your boss, your boos don't mean anything to me. I've seen what you people cheer for. James is a brilliant communicator. Yeah. All right. So that's that. No. So if you come up, you got to turn your volume down, and just engage me on the show. Turn off if anybody wants to come up, you have to turn off the YouTube or turn it down, mute it in the background. You can use your phone or whatever, but you have to click on the link, and that's how you would come up. And it's going to ask you to write your name in. You allow your headphones and video and all that kind of stuff. So marriage is for the highly mature, but particularly for today. I definitely agree with that. Particularly for today, if you are trying to be engaged in marriage, you gotta do something different. My daughter was telling me today that one of her friends is trying to get married, and or is anticipating a proposal, and these kids, they don't know what they're doing. particularly now as we viewed, there's so many different dynamics and all that. And if you don't know what you're doing, you're not dedicated, you're not willing to sacrifice, you're selfish, you haven't had a conversation about what marriage is, what it's not, what it should be, what sex is going to be like, what's our communication style, what's how are we going to deal with the kids if I become a vegan, if I was a vegan and I change up, or now I want to get tattoos, or I want to. You got to have you got to have all these types of conversations, and I definitely think that mentoring, certificates, counseling ought to be mandatory. So. I've heard that relationships are seasonal, friendships to marriages, only families forever. I think that marriage should be more stable than the. This is really my thought, even though I've been through what I've been through. I really think that marriage, if you really, that's why I think it's really a social contagion. And that's why I feel so bad about it, right? You see other people going on, you see other things happening, you see all this different stuff, and social media influences, and you allow that stuff into your head. You allow that stuff into your head, and it can really destroy. It can really destroy. I think the date marriage is. I think the date marriage is trivialized and not looking at the solemn commitment. We now, yeah, right, the marriage wedding date. We now see weddings that are production shows, not really respecting the covenant of marriage. I don't know. I think there was some kind of research one time that said that those more extravagant the marriage, the more likely they are to get divorced. I can't verify that. That's something I can remember reading, but I don't know how true that is. Yeah. So it's not about the date. It's about it's about the journey after the date. So yeah. So if you are married or plan to get married, make sure you maintain that connection, work it out. It's the you. I like that, the you, the me, and the we. You got to develop, mature, keep going forward, educate yourself. I got to mature, educate myself, and then there's a we. Where do we fit into each other? You got to figure out that thing, because he was right. We had laughs before. We went to the movies. We went putt golf. We went on vacation. We did all this stuff, and now where's that we anymore, right? And that's why I think that guy was saying in that post that I read underneath the video that I played, is that he was being this marine biologist or engineer, whatever he was, marine engineer, and he's not able to wasn't able to keep that connection with his wife, and he recognizes it now. And that's why I also talk about work life balance. You got to spend time with your kids. You got to spend time with your wife. You can't be working 14-hour days all the time, 10 14-hour day, 10 12 14-hour days. Can't do that all the time. I had a friend in the police department. This happened to a few guys in the police department. They were always working. Every time they called overtime, every time they called overtime, they would work it. Every time they called for overtime, or worked an extra duty job, they would take those assignments and be out there working, sacrificing their sleep, sacrificing their proper eating, sacrificing time with their children, and sacrificing time with their kids. Excuse me, with their spouse, and eventually they lose all of them. Eventually, you lose all of them. Your sleep and your eating habits are gonna affect your health, and then your time with your kids. They're gonna resent you. You missed a baseball game. You missed that. You missed this. They want that too, and then of course your wife. It's terrible. Terrible. I never ever did that. I never did that. I never. I mean, I worked occasionally here and there. But my life was not the police department. Guys were always asking me, "I want you to join the SWAT team and this and that, and we're doing this." I'm going home and spending time with my kids. I can't be doing this all the time. You can't do it all the time. You can't do everything. And when I became the higher up you go, the more stuff you got to go to, had to go to these different mayor's functions and balls and this and go see this. You're missing time with your family. Missing time with your family doing all that. Crazy. Crazy. Miles, you coming up? Otherwise, I'm going to call it, brother. It's 10 o'clock. I'm kind of tired. I've been working all day. So I'll give you a couple more minutes if you can figure it out. Otherwise, we're going to call it for tonight. I do appreciate you guys rocking with me this evening. Like I said, I want to watch this video, and it was not a debate, which I'm kind of disappointed about. However, I want to watch the video. It's been on my to watch list for a long time here, so I want to kind of just cross it off. Oh, there you go. We'll get you up here. So I want to kind of cross it off. All right, brother, you got to mute me in the background there, man. You got to mute me. So I want to kind of cross it off. All right, brother, you got to mute me in the background there, man. You got to mute me.
Okay. Is that good?
All right, it's going to be a delay, so you got to pay attention to me and make sure I'm muted in the background.
Okay. Okay. Is that good?
All right, it's going to be a delay. All right, you got me now, right? I'm muted in the background. Just you
I
and me.
think so.
Just pay attention to me, now, right?
All right.
Okay. All right, brother. So what are your thoughts about the video we just played? And then you want to come up on the last. You said something about coming up on the last show. So the floor is yours. What did you think about the videos that we played tonight?
Yeah, I mean, I just thought, I kind of make some comments. Oh, slight lag there. Yeah, I make comments, and they may sound kind of crazy. I just want to, put an actual voice and image to those comments. I don't just. But I'm a single guy. I don't date a lot. I work all the time. I don't know, I'm just more of an observer type. I don't. I'm not a chaser. I'm not a hyper aggressive or anything like that. So I mean, I got my own opinions, but
So after watching, I appreciate that, brother. So after watching those videos, are you going to become a chaser type? You going to try to get married, or what are your thoughts about marriage in the future? And how old are you? Roughly how old are you?
I'm 53.
Okay. So are you looking to get married? You want that one day, or what?
If it happens, it happens. I mean, like I said, I'm 53. Uh, it'd be cool to have a caretaker, someone to bounce ideas off of. But I do enjoy, being single. You know, uh,
I don't say
and
caretaker,
that,
man. That's gonna chase ladies away. But like, oh, this guy's just looking for a nurse, a
yeah, I
nurse with
mean,
a purse.
so it's strange you say that because I've dated several nurses over the years. I just kind of connect with that type. So maybe I just enjoy that type of company. A
Okay,
nurturer that type. Yeah.
okay. All right. Well, so did you ever want to be? Did you ever? Did you ever want to be married? Did you ever want that? Or
Uh, Never pursued it aggressively. Um, I like being in a relationship. I was in a relationship one time for maybe 3 years or so, uh, but maybe I didn't move fast enough. I think she got impatient. And it kind of tapered off quickly. And she also had a 14-year-old too, so it was kind of difficult. Navigating those two relationships. Trying to connect with the kid and also have a relationship with her. So I mean, uh, I guess it could be difficult or different in the black community versus other cultures. But she was educated, and I'm educated as well. But uh, she wanted super education. She got her master's. She wanted to be a PhD. This is a nurse I'm talking about. So I think I wasn't quite, you know, uh,
You
maybe
weren't driven enough for
financially
her.
a match for her,
Oh, okay, okay.
or career career motivated like she was. So
Okay. Well, that happens. I can understand that. Um, all right. So, is there anything else you want to add that you saw tonight, or anything else you want to add?
no, I thought the conversation with the gentleman was interesting. I mean, there's a lot of topics that they covered. I mean, the polygamy thing, I made a comment that, one at a time is more than enough. I mean, if you're trying to live your life and secure your future, you can't be chasing, ladies. I mean, some guys may feel differently. I mean, it depends on what kind of spaces you hang out in. That's just, my personal opinion.
Mm. Yeah. Yeah. Well, definitely. Relationships take time, and so if you don't have the time to put into, particularly for in my opinion, for the ladies, they need a lot of time and attention. Right? You gotta talk to them. You gotta put that time in. If you don't want to do it, if you don't have the time for it. And I don't know how brothers talk to a bunch of different women all the time. I mean,
And
especially
that's
if you got
another
something
thing.
going on, right? If you
Yeah,
got
that's
something
another
going
thing you
on,
mentioned that sorry to mean to interrupt, but you kind of have to stop doing what you're doing to nurture that relationship. You have to find a balance. And
yeah,
that's the hardest part for me. You know.
yeah, yeah, absolutely, 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 brother. I appreciate you coming up, man. I'm getting kind of sleepy. I'm going to bed,
Yeah, me
but I
too.
do appreciate you coming up, man. I appreciate it. So thank you again, man. I really
Okay.
appreciate it. Uh, Fairly Godmother says not all ladies need time and attention. Yeah, no, that's definitely true. Not all of them, but but
They
but
will say that.
they don't think it's a
They
lot.
tell
They
you
don't think it's a
anything,
lot.
but I mean, they
They
mean they
don't think
feel
it's a lot.
differently.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. They don't think, particularly if you really like a dude, right? If you really, really like a dude, you want to spend a lot of time with them. You you want to spend a lot of time with them, right? So I can't. For me, I couldn't do my podcast. I couldn't do a lot of hobbies and stuff. So, but
Yeah.
eventually, I'm sure I'll get there. Fairly Godmother says she needs space. Okay, back up. Yoli says I need time and attention. So we'll see. We'll see how it
Yeah.
goes.
Thanks for. I just thought I'd call. Just put a voice to the face. You
No,
know.
but I appreciate you, man, being faithful, man. You come on all the time, man. So I
Yeah, we need
definitely
some more testosterone up in here, man.
we need a lot more testosterone up in here. So I I appreciate it, man. I appreciate it, brother. Thank you so much. All
All
right,
right. Yeah.
y'all. I'm gonna see y'all. You guys take care. Hit the like button on your way out. Thank you so much for coming in the comment section and all that. And I really appreciate the engagement. Thank you so much. Hit the like button on the way out. And let's keep the conversation going. Much love and peace. Now, thanks for hanging out with me, Rhonda. You guys hung out with me, and I appreciate that. Glorious love salute. I'll take care. Yes, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share. Don't forget that. Good night, y'all. Good night.